Before we begin, I need one thing from you. Give this message your full attention. Don't listen to it like entertainment. Listen as if your future depends on it. Because over the next few minutes, you're going to discover why extraordinary people are built differently from everyone else, and why most people spend their entire lives trapped in ordinary thinking. If you've ever wanted to become the person others cannot ignore, the person whose success seems impossible to explain, then stay with me until the end. This lesson isn't about motivation, it's about transformation. When you finally break through, nobody will call it what it actually was. They won't say you rebuilt yourself, one unbearable morning at a time. They won't say you sat with your own failures long enough to understand them instead of running from them. They'll say you got lucky. They'll say you were in the right place. They'll say the timing worked out. Let them say it. Their explanation costs you nothing, and it protects you from something dangerous: their attention. The moment people believe your rise was earned through struggle, they start asking how to copy your struggle. The moment they believe it was luck, they stop looking at you altogether. That's not a loss, that's the cover. Here is what they didn't see. They didn't see you show up to the version of yourself you didn't like yet. They didn't see the version of you that wanted to quit, standing next to the version that refused to. They didn't see you turn down comfort on ordinary Tuesday nights when nothing was watching and nothing was keeping score except you. Extraordinary people are not extraordinary because something dramatic happened to them. They're extraordinary because they made 10,000 unremarkable decisions that nobody will ever see, and they kept making them long after the excitement wore off. The ordinary world runs on inspiration, a burst of energy that fades by Thursday. The extraordinary world runs on a structure that doesn't care how you feel on Thursday. Your task is not to convince anyone of what you're becoming. Your task is to become it so completely that explanation becomes unnecessary. A tree doesn't announce that it grew. It simply stands taller than it did last year, and everyone who walks past it notices without being told. So stop narrating your growth to people who haven't earned a seat in your process. Stop looking for permission or validation before you take the next step. The audience you're performing for in your head is smaller and less interested than you think. Most people are too occupied with their own unfinished business to study yours closely. Write this down if it lands. I don't need them to understand it. I need it to work. Let that be less a slogan and more a boundary, a line between the noise of other people's opinions and the quiet of your own construction site. While they debate whether you deserve what's coming, you keep building it. While they wait for proof, you keep gathering it in private. And by the time proof becomes undeniable, the debate will already be over. They'll call it timing. You'll know it was work, repeated, until it stopped looking like work and started looking like character. The version of you that changes everything will not be built in front of an audience. It will be built in the unglamorous hours, the early mornings nobody applauds, the late nights nobody records, the small corrections nobody notices, because they happen quietly, one decision at a time. Most people ruin their own transformation before it starts, because they need witnesses too early. They announce the diet before the first meal. They announce the business before the first sale. They announce the new discipline before it has survived a single hard week. And the moment they announce it, they've traded the private fuel of proving something to themselves for the public fuel of proving something to an audience. And public fuel runs out the second the audience stops watching. Here's the quieter, harder truth. A goal that depends on being witnessed is a goal that depends on other people's memory, which is unreliable, and other people's opinions, which are inconsistent. A goal built in private depends on nothing but your own follow-through. That's a sturdier foundation. This doesn't mean secrecy for its own sake, or turning silence into a performance of mystery. It means understanding that your early attempts, your rough drafts, your inevitable stumbles, need room to fail without an audience grading them. Let your first attempts be bad in private. Let your habits be inconsistent in private until they aren't. Growth needs somewhere unobserved to happen, the same way a seed needs to be underground before it can be a tree. Train without posting every rep. Save without broadcasting every dollar. Study without narrating every page you read. Not because these things are shameful, but because explaining them drains the same energy you need to actually do them. Every time you describe the plan instead of executing it, you get a small hit of satisfaction that tricks your brain into believing you've already done the work. Systems are what carry you when motivation runs out, and it will run out, on a random Tuesday, for no reason you can name. A person relying on motivation is at the mercy of their own mood. A person relying on systems does the work regardless of mood, because the system doesn't ask how they feel. Write this down. I build where no one is watching. I arrive when the results speak for themselves. Let your ordinary days be the ones nobody sees. Let your extraordinary results be the ones nobody can ignore. There is a strange advantage available to anyone willing to be underestimated for a while. Room to grow without pressure. The person everyone expects greatness from immediately is watched, scrutinized, and often crushed by expectation before they've had time to develop. The person nobody expects anything from gets to develop in peace. This is uncomfortable to accept, especially if you've spent years wanting recognition. But recognition too early can be a trap. It asks you to perform competence you haven't built yet. It puts you on stage before rehearsal is finished. Being quietly underestimated, on the other hand, buys you the one resource that matters most in the beginning: time to actually get good without anyone keeping score. Use this time. While people assume you're doing nothing remarkable, study everything remarkable happening around you. Notice who stays calm under real pressure and who cracks the moment things get inconvenient. Notice who talks constantly about what they're going to do and who quietly just does it. Notice your own reactions too, where you get defensive, where you seek approval you don't need, where your ego moves faster than your judgment. This isn't about manipulating people or collecting leverage over them. It's about paying attention instead of performing. Most people spend their energy trying to look capable. Spend yours becoming capable instead, and let the looking capable part take care of itself later, when it's actually true. You don't need to prove your intelligence in every conversation. You don't need to win every disagreement or correct every wrong opinion you hear. Every time you resist that urge, you're building a kind of patience that compounds, the same way money or skill compounds, quietly, and then all at once. The goal isn't to stay hidden forever. It's to stay unhurried long enough that when you do step forward, you're stepping forward with something real instead of something rushed. A half-built skill shown too early gets dismissed. A fully built skill shown at the right moment gets remembered. Write this down. I let the timeline be long. I let the results be undeniable. There's no need to rush toward being seen. Being good enough that people can't look away takes care of the seeing on its own. Pain, disappointment, and failure are not obstacles standing between you and the life you want. Handled correctly, they're raw material for building it. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who become extraordinary is rarely the amount of hardship they faced. It's what they did with it afterward. Most people treat pain as something to explain rather than something to use. They tell the story of what happened to them over and over, looking for sympathy, validation, or an apology that may never come. There's nothing wrong with needing to process difficult experiences. That's human, and it matters. But there's a difference between processing something and living inside it indefinitely, using it as the permanent explanation for why things haven't changed. At some point, the more useful question stops being, "Why did this happen to me?" and becomes, "What does this teach me that I couldn't have learned any easier way?" If someone's dishonesty hurt you, that experience can teach you to build better judgment about who to trust and when. If failure embarrassed you, it can teach you exactly which gaps in your preparation to close next time. If being overlooked stung, it can teach you patience and self-reliance instead of a hunger for approval. This is not about becoming cold or shutting down your emotions. It's about refusing to let a difficult season be wasted. Emotion that only circles the wound keeps you where you are. Emotion that gets redirected into preparation moves you forward. The feeling itself isn't the problem. What you do with it is. Be careful not to romanticize people or situations that have already shown you who they are. simply because starting over feels harder than staying. Clarity about a bad situation is a gift, even when it's an uncomfortable one. Use it. Build boundaries where you didn't have them. Build independence where you needed it. Build standards where you had none. Write this down. I don't waste what hurts me. I learn from it and keep moving. Heal at your own pace, but heal toward something, toward more discipline, more clarity, more self-respect, not just toward numbness. The goal isn't to pretend the hard season didn't happen. It's to make sure it wasn't for nothing. Nothing quietly kills potential the way distraction does. It doesn't announce itself as an enemy. It shows up disguised as relaxation, as a quick break, as 5 more minutes of something that doesn't matter. And piece by piece, it consumes the hours that could have built the life you actually want. Every hour spent scrolling without intention, arguing about things that won't matter in a week, or chasing cheap entertainment, is an hour someone else, somewhere, spent building a skill, finishing a project, or getting one step closer to something real. That's not meant to guilt you. It's meant to make the stakes clear. Time isn't renewable. Once it's spent, there's no getting it back, regardless of how it was spent. The modern world is engineered to fragment your attention. Every app, every notification, every headline is competing for a piece of your focus, and most of them win by exploiting boredom or emotion, rather than offering anything of real value. A person with scattered attention is easy to influence, because someone who reacts to everything has no center of their own, no direction they're steering toward on purpose. Becoming extraordinary requires the opposite, a mind that doesn't bend every time comfort or convenience calls. This isn't about becoming joyless or eliminating rest. Rest is necessary and deserved. It's about being intentional with the difference between rest that restores you and distraction that just numbs you for a while and leaves you emptier than before. Look honestly at where your energy leaks. Pointless arguments, relationships that take more than they give, the need to be constantly entertained rather than occasionally still. None of these leaks feel dramatic individually. Together, over months and years, they're the difference between a life fully lived and a life mostly scrolled through. You don't need more hours in the day. You need fewer places where the hours you already have are quietly disappearing. Protect your mornings. Protect your focus. Say no to things that offer nothing but noise. Write this down. My attention is my most valuable resource, and I spend it on purpose. Let other people be pulled in 10 directions by everything that flashes in front of them. Choose one direction and give it the focus that most people never manage to give anything. Long before people fully understand what you've accomplished, they form an impression of you, based on how you carry yourself, how you speak under pressure, how consistent you are, and how you treat people who can't do anything for you. That impression matters, and pretending it doesn't is a mistake. This isn't about manufacturing a fake image or performing a version of yourself that isn't true. It's about understanding that the world often meets you through impressions before it ever meets you through evidence, so it's worth making sure those impressions are honest and accurate, not careless. A person who reacts emotionally to every minor conflict, who complains publicly about every setback, who explains and re-explains themselves to people who were never going to be convinced anyway, ends up looking unstable, regardless of how talented they actually are. Meanwhile, a person who stays composed under pressure, who follows through quietly and consistently, earns trust simply by being reliable in a world where reliability is rare. You don't owe everyone access to your unfiltered thoughts, your unprocessed pain, or your still developing plans. That's not secrecy for its own sake. It's discernment about what's ready to be shared and what still needs time to become solid. The roughest version of your ideas, your grief, your uncertainty, deserves a small, trusted circle, not a public audience. Take care of the fundamentals that quietly signal self-respect: your health, your word, your follow-through, how you speak about people who aren't in the room to defend themselves. These aren't vanity. They're the visible evidence of the invisible discipline you're building. People notice, even when they can't articulate exactly what they're noticing. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding or answer every unfair assumption about you. Sometimes the most convincing response is simply continuing to show up as who you actually are, consistently, until the truth becomes obvious without a single argument. Write this down. I let consistency speak for me. Let your name start to carry weight, not because you announced that it should, but because everything you've quietly done has made it true. If you want to matter in a way that lasts, stop optimizing for being liked and start becoming genuinely useful. Being liked is pleasant, but it's also fragile. It shifts with moods, trends, and misunderstandings. Being valuable is sturdier. It's built on what you can actually do, solve, and contribute, and that kind of worth doesn't evaporate the moment someone's opinion of you changes. This starts with real competence, not the appearance of it, the substance of it. Learn the things most people avoid because they're difficult or unglamorous. Get excellent in areas where mediocrity is the norm, because that's exactly where standing out becomes easiest. While others spend their energy managing how they're perceived, spend yours becoming someone whose actual output speaks for itself. Be the person who stays composed when a situation gets difficult, instead of panicking. Be the one who can be trusted with something important, because your effort doesn't depend on someone constantly checking on you. That kind of dependability is rare enough that it gets noticed, even by people who never say so out loud. At the same time, value yourself enough not to give endlessly, without limits. Being generous with your time, effort, and skill is admirable. But generosity, without any boundaries, invites people to take more than they'd ever offer in return. It's possible to be genuinely helpful and still protect your own capacity. In fact, it's necessary. A person with no limits eventually has nothing left to give anyone, including themselves. Build skills that are hard to replace. Build a reputation for actually finishing what you start. Build relationships based on mutual respect, rather than one-sided convenience. Over time, this changes how people treat you. Not because they suddenly became more thoughtful, but because your consistency raised the cost of taking you for granted. Write this down. I build real value, not just a good impression. People who once overlooked you will eventually pay closer attention, not because luck intervened, but because you quietly became someone whose presence actually changes outcomes. That shift happens gradually, then all at once. Reaching a genuinely extraordinary level of success is not the finish line, it's a different kind of test. Many people who build something remarkable eventually lose it, not because they stopped being skilled, but because they let recognition change who they were at the core. Success tends to invite comfort, and comfort, left unchecked, quietly erodes the very discipline that created the success in the first place. When people finally start noticing what you've built, resist the urge to relax the habits that got you there. The same consistency that lifted you needs to keep governing you. The same patience that helped you wait needs to keep guiding your next decisions. It's tempting to believe that arrival means the hard part is over. It rarely is, it just changes shape. Be thoughtful about who gets closer access to you once you have something worth being close to. Not out of paranoia, but out of realism. More visibility naturally brings more people interested in what you now have, and not all of that interest is in your best interest. Trust slowly. Keep your circle small and honest. Choose people who tell you the truth even when it's inconvenient over people who only tell you what keeps you comfortable. Above all, don't fall in love with the applause. Applause is unreliable, temporary, and says more about the person clapping than about you. Stay attached instead to the standard that got you here, the discipline, the follow-through, the willingness to do unglamorous work when no one's watching. That standard is what will carry you through the next challenge, long after any specific accomplishment has been forgotten by everyone except you. You don't owe anyone a full explanation of how you got here. Let people believe whatever story is easiest for them. Luck, timing, privilege, whatever protects them from having to examine their own choices. You know the truth. It was ordinary effort, repeated without an audience, for long enough that it stopped looking ordinary at all. Write this down one final time. My discipline got me here, and my discipline keeps me here. That's the whole lesson. Not a single dramatic moment, but a life built one unremarkable, disciplined day at a time, until it became impossible to call it anything but extraordinary.